Hello, good morning. Hope you're having a lovely day. Today I would like to talk about the rise of Steve Laws. This video is going to be kind of like a general commentary on Steve Laws. It's also a video reaction to the recent interview that he did with Andrew Gold. And it's also a reaction to Sargon's reaction to that video. So it's a reaction to a reaction video. Right at the beginning of the video, I will say Steve Laws is welcome to come on my show. We have a show every Sunday. It's called The Anglo Gang. Every Sunday, 7 o'clock, me and some friends, we sit down and we talk about the news and random subject matters from an ethno-nationalist position. It's very laid back. It's a little bit of banter, blowing off steam at the end of the week. Steve Laws is invited on, right? And Sargon's invited on as well, for that matter. Why am I saying this? Because Sargon just did a response video to Steve Laws, and it's just like, well, mate, if you're gonna make it's not wrong to make response videos and to talk about people, but I mean, if you're going to do that, I think it is fair that you should also invite them on in order to defend themselves. And I think probably Sargon will at some point. But he did call Steve Laws the Greta Thunberg of the right, which is a bit, anyway, it's a bit catty. But anyway, so let's get into this right at the beginning of the video. Yeah, I think Steve's a great guy, and I like the guy. And first of all, to take a step back, I think that this is a great victory for ethno-nationalism. The Liam Tufts video was also quite a big success. I think that was kind of overshadowed by the Nick Fuentes thing. Did that come out at the same week? I don't know. But anyway, I think something happened in the news that kind of overshadowed it. But anyway, that was a big breakthrough. And this is another big breakthrough. And Steve is making quite a name for himself on the English scene. And I think this is brilliant. I have personally been involved in ethno-nationalist politics on the internet since 2016. I was there in the great meme war of 2016. My videos used to get posted on the Daily Stormer. So I've been around for a while, and my YouTube channel keeps getting shut down. I keep getting kicked off the internet. That's why I don't have many followers, but nonetheless, I've been around for a while, and I can say to you that this is a massive victory. And this is the kind of thing we would have dreamed of back in 2016, like to have somebody like Steve Laws going on a mainstream podcast and just saying, yeah, let's kick all the foreigners out, right? This is epic, fantastic. That being said, how can I phrase this? Okay, it's not that I disagree with Steve Laws. It's just like I see him. I kind of like see him as like the bad cop, or playing the role of the bad cop, whereas I would rather play the role of the good cop. And I think all the world's a stage, and different players have kind of like different roles to play in the narrative. Perhaps this is what Sargon was getting at when he called him the Greta Thunberg of the right, although I think that's unreasonable. Because first of all, it's slightly insulting, but second of all, Greta Thunberg wants to achieve something which is actually impossible. Like, she wants to change the weather. That is not possible. Also, Zach Polanski wants to do some weird economic communist nonsense, which just won't work. What Steve Laws is asking for is not actually impossible. It is physically possible. You can take power in this country, and you can raise an army of 1 million white men, or whatever it takes, and we can physically remove the foreigners from our country, all of them. We're not talking about flying pigs here, right? This is a doable thing. So to compare him to Greta Thunberg in that respect, I think, is unreasonable. However, I do agree that it's going to be difficult for the British public to accept his quite extreme position that all foreigners must go. And what I am advocating for, because I think Sargon's right when he says we've only got one shot at this. 2029, in fact, I don't even know if we're going to make it to the 2029 election, to be honest with you. Like, what's that going to mean? Another 4 million foreigners in the country? Is Keir Starmer going to make us rejoin the European Union? Are we even going to have the pound at that time? Are we going to have the euro? Are we going to have a Sharia law police force? Like, who knows how bad things could get? But whatever the case, change has to happen, and it has to happen now. And we kind of do have only one shot at this, and we need to get the British public on our side, and we need to get all of them on our side, or at least the majority of them on our side. And I think the majority of them are not going to accept the Steve Law's position of all foreigners will go. I just think people are a bit soft, that's all. Some will, but not all of them. So my personal position is I want England to be majority white. You see, that's my compromise. So I am essentially advocating for a soft ethno-nationalism, whereas Steve Laws is advocating for a hard ethno-nationalism. And the reason I'm advocating for a soft ethno-nationalism is partly because I believe it, but partly also because I think that it's something that other people can accept. And I've tried this out on people that I know, right, friends and family, etc. I've said to them, I think England should remain majority white. And even old boomers have agreed with me and said yes. These are old brainwashed boomers who would never in a million years dare to call themselves ethno-nationalists, and who obviously don't have good opinions about Adolf Hitler or any of that stuff. But if I say to them, yeah, England should be majority white, they nod their heads and they say, yeah. So I think that is the compromise that we must take. That is how we are going to get the majority of people on our side. I think Steve Laws has done a fantastic job of pushing the meme of remigration. One of the great beauties of Steve Laws is that he's very one-pointed. And this is one of his great strengths in this interview or debate with Andrew Gold. He's very one-pointed. So Andrew Gold will take him in this direction, that direction, some weird hypothesis like, what would you do if you married someone and then discovered they were Jewish, or whatever, some nonsense. And Steve will always bring it back to, look, this is my country, I just want to kick the foreigners out, right? Because I don't want to be replaced in my own country. And it's very simple and it's very direct, and it's kind of perfect, to be honest with you. It's pure. It cuts through all of the ideological nonsense. It strikes, as Bowden might have said, it goes behind the mind. It attacks, or it doesn't attack, but it attracts the caveman mentality, essentially. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a compliment. What he is advocating for is caveman politics. Essentially, like, this is mine, my island, my England, my land, my territory. You don't belong here. You get out. That's it. None of this conversation. There's no conversation about socialism or capitalism or liberalism, or there's no confusion with other ideologies and isms and ists and the history, and none of this. It's very one-pointed and direct and straightforward, and I think it's beautiful. I really do. I think it's perfect. It's not the kind of thing that I can do, because I like to ramble about a wide range of subject matters, and that's probably, personally speaking, like that's a strength for me, but it's also a weakness, because 1 minute I'm talking about ethno-nationalism, the next minute tomorrow I'm planning to make a video about 9/11, right? Loose change. I've just rewatched the documentary and I'm going to make a video about that. So I'm all over the place, philosophically, politically, or whatever. I like to talk about a wide range of subject matters. Steve doesn't. He's straight to the point. So it's a great strength of his. But having said all of this, I still don't think the majority of people are going to rally behind that. I just don't think they will. I mean, that's just politics for you. You have to get the majority on your side, and in order to get the majority on your side, you have to moderate. But this is why I say, like, good cop, bad cop, right? This is why I'm saying what I'm saying. I don't think Steve should actually change his message. I think he should absolutely 100% stick with what he is saying and keep driving it forwards, because he's driving the narrative forwards. and he's shifting the Overton window, basically. And so now Sargon looks like a moderate, right? Sargon looks like a moderate in comparison to Steve Laws. Andrew Gold looks like a moderate in comparison to Steve Laws. Tommy Robinson looks like a moderate in comparison to Steve Laws. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the good cop, bad cop routine. It's beautiful. I love it. And I mean, and Sargon is an ethno-nationalist at this point. I don't know if he declares himself to be it, possibly because there may be laws against ethno-nationalism in this country, and I'm really not sure actually. But nonetheless, like the entire younger generation of right-wing thinkers on the internet are all basically ethno-nationalists at this point. Connor Tomlinson is basically an ethno-nationalist. All of the boys on the Lotus Eaters are all basically ethno-nationalists. Rupert Lowe is sort of an ethno-nationalist at this point. So those ideas are, and I don't see that changing at any point. I don't see it shifting back. If you are a straight white man, a straight white English man, and you have right-wing opinions, I don't really see why you should change your mind on the ethno-nationalist question at this point. I don't see how that's going to change at any point, unless we just get completely submerged and we're all forced to convert to Islam or whatever. So I think we've won that debate moving forwards. And Steve Laws is kind of just like leading the charge. But as I say, I agree with Sargon. Or I agree, I don't know if I specifically agree with Sargon, but I believe that we have to have a more moderate position in order to get the majority on our side. The meme that I would like to push is we want an England that is majority white. This is the position that we should be pushing here, and in Canada, and in America, and in Australia, and in New Zealand, and in every white country of the world. That is the phrase, okay? That's the phrase. That is a moderate white ethno-nationalism that everybody can rally behind. Because if you're against it, then it reveals you to be the enemy of the English people. And it gives people, the beauty of this phrase is that it gives ordinary people the ability to, it gives them plausible deniability, essentially. So this is the kind of phrase that you can say at work, and if you work with like an Indian guy or an African guy or whatever, you can say to him, "Oh, not you, mate. You're all right. Yeah, you're one of the good ones. You've got a job. You pay your taxes. Yeah, you're all right, mate," or whatever. See what I'm saying? Because most people are not extremely political, and they don't want to get into weird, embarrassing situations with friends and family and the people they work with. It makes it very, very awkward for people to take a very hostile position of, yeah, I'm going to kick you out of the country, because it is a very aggressive thing to say. But if you're just saying, no, I just want England to be majority white, we got to kick a lot of people out, then anybody that confronts you on this issue, you can just say, nah, you're right. Yeah, you're good. You're good, mate. You're one of the good ones. You can stay. Yeah. You see? And then you can dodge the awkwardness of the conversation, and then the phrase or the idea will be able to be adopted quite easily by the masses, and then it can go into the political sphere, and then we can win, right? And then once we're in power, well, even Steve Laws himself has admitted, like, it's going to be a step-by-step process. Like, first we need a total ban on immigration. Obviously we need to bring back the death penalty. Obviously deport the criminals, deport the unemployed, deal with the Boris wave, and, you know, boom, 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 boom. So there's about 20 million foreigners in this country. Something like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't follow the figures too closely. The supermarkets think that there's about 80 million people living in the country. So there's probably a lot of illegals. But whatever the case, we're not just going to kick them out overnight. We could just kick them out overnight, violently. It's possible. But I think that would wreck the economy. to be honest with you. I think it would just be violent and dangerous, and I think a lot of people will end up dying. We are, of course, an island. We can't just force them to walk over the border. We're going to have to put them on planes. What's going to happen if they stop the planes from leaving or whatever? What's going to happen if we get sanctioned by the United Nations? All kinds of problems could occur. We don't grow enough food for ourselves. We don't have our own energy supply. We get our electricity from France. So I just think it's kind of it could go really, really badly if we just try to violently kick everybody out of the country. I think it would just be better for everybody involved if we did it in a, British orderly manner. I think that the number one goal probably isn't mass deportations. The number one goal would be mass disenfranchisement. So what I mean by that is you stop these people from voting, and then they are no longer a political threat. And then once you've achieved that, then we can get rid of them at leisure. Of course, we will still be in a dangerous position, because if an alternative parliament gets back in, then they could reverse that, and then we'd have a real problem. So I'm not saying that's all. I think perhaps you'd have to have a referendum or make it law that you're not allowed to change. We could disenfranchise everybody, confirm it by referendum, and really get it enshrined in law so that some other parliament can't just get in there and change it without another referendum. That would probably be the best way to really, really hammer it home. Of course, I'm a fan of direct democracy, and that's the way I'm thinking these days. But nonetheless, we could do it in a violent manner, but I just think, oh man, that might be a bit dangerous. Probably better to do it in a step-by-step manner, and that's probably the kind of thing that the British public will vote for. So essentially what I'm saying is we need to get people to support the idea of, we want England to be majority white, and then we need to get into power, and then we need to start deporting people, and as you say, in a step-by-step way, and get down to the Boris wave, and then get down. Once you get the ball rolling, and once it's politically acceptable to do it, then you can shift the goalposts of what is majority white, essentially. What does that mean? 60%? Or 70? Or 80? Or 90? Or 95%? Or 99%? Do you see what I'm saying? So that's the way I think it should be done. But nonetheless, also I would disagree with Steve Laws in regard to his opinions on the mixed race question. I just don't think that people are going to accept that. I think it's too extreme. I think that in most cultures in the world, if you marry into that tribe, then you will be accepted as a member of that tribe. So if you move to Japan, you marry a Japanese woman and you have a child with her, and you live in Japan, actually I think your child will not be accepted as Japanese. Your child will be identified as being a half caste. And I've heard that with the Japanese it takes 2-3 generations before they're really firmly accepted as being fully Japanese. But nonetheless, you wouldn't be thrown out of the country. I don't think anybody would be kicking you out at any time soon. So I think that's the way to deal with it. Just say we want a majority white country, and then we can get all the half castes and various different brown people and whatever, we can get them all on board, and then we can win, because that's the way democracy works. The side with the most people wins, because they get the biggest vote, and in order to get the biggest vote, you got to have the majority. And so I really don't think the fanaticism over half caste breeding is really relevant at this time. But nonetheless, as I say, he's playing the bad cop. He's playing the role of, and again, I don't mean it as an insult, I mean it as a compliment, but he's playing that caveman mentality of there's just one issue. We've got these foreigners in our country and we want them out. It is primordial, it is territorial, it is instinctive, It's like the old reptilian brain or the old like mammal brain or whatever you want to call it. It's like, no, this is mine. This is my country. You don't belong here. Get out. It's simple. It's direct. It's beautiful, and I hope he continues with that message. To be honest with you, but it's not the message that I'm going to be pushing. So that's the way I feel about that. I took some notes on the interview. I saw that right at the beginning, Andrew Gold attempts to undermine the ethnicity of the English. So basically he goes into the whole thing. The English are a mishmash of different groups. This is, of course, true to a certain extent. On the British Isles, at least, you've got the English, you've got the Welsh, and you've got the Scottish. And then, of course, thrown into the mix, you've got the Normans. Arguably, you've got a bunch of Vikings that came over and established the Danelaw. You've got a few Huguenots that came over from France during the Reformation. Not many of them, but quite a few. I think about 100,000 maybe. So, I mean, it was a big immigration at the time. So, essentially, this is just classic subversion of, who are the English? Do they even exist? Right? Because he divides the English into many subgroups of ethnicities, and then he says, you were also conquered by the Normans, and then during the rest of the interview, as soon as Steve Laws says that we want to kick England is for the English, Andrew Gold will then turn around and just say, well, you can't even define what an English person is. And it's such a lame tactic that I think most objective and honest and straightforward people can just see how moronic it is. But nonetheless, it's a tactic that they play. I mean, to be honest with you, like I don't know what I would do. If I was, if Andrew Gold started off the conversation like this, I would probably just say, I would probably go into the history of it a bit more. I do think, obviously, we are the English people. We are a Germanic people. We came over with Hengist and Horsa. Before we came over, this island was ruled by the British. So the Britons historically are descended from the Trojans. Most people don't know this history, but this is our mythological history. Essentially, you have the Trojan War. Troy gets sacked. Aeneas leaves Troy, settles in Italy. He has a son, and then I think his grandson is Brutus of Troy. He gets kicked out of Italy because he accidentally kills his father in a hunting accident. He then goes to Greece and organizes a slave revolt there. There's a lot of Trojans that have been kept as slaves by the Greeks. He organizes a revolt, and then they get on some boats, and they end up in Britain. Well, first of all, they land in an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. Brutus lies down. He has a dream. The goddess Diana comes to him and says that your descendants will conquer the whole world, right? Which is beautiful, because that's the British Empire. And then he goes and he settles in Britain. He lands. You can see the Brutus stone. It's down in Totnes, South Devon. It should be a place of celebration. Like, nationalists all over should go there and celebrate it. But nonetheless, whatever. The point is, the Britons are named after Brutus of Troy, who was a Trojan, and the English came in. The Saxons, they are the descendants of Hengist and Horsa, because of course what happened is the Britons ruled the country, the Romans came over, conquered Britain, and then the Roman Empire collapsed. So there's all the Roman army, they just left Britain. So Britain was kind of left defenseless. So we were having a lot of problems with the Scottish, the Gaelic people and the Picts up north. So the Britons invited Hengist and Horsa over to help defend the Britons against the Scottish. And then there was some kind of confusion, and the Saxons ended up taking over the country. And now all that is left of the old Britons is the Welsh. And then, of course, you've got the Scots up in the north. Scottish people are, of course, Irish. Irish people are, of course, Gaelic. And they have their own mythology, which they trace all the way back to Princess Scotia, who is the daughter of the Pharaoh. She married a Scythian. Okay, the Scythians are essentially the inhabitants of the Asian steppe, the horsemen, right? Kind of like Conan the Barbarian type. Conan the Barbarian is actually based on the Scythians, by the way. But she married one of them. They had a son. That son was called Goidal Glass. He's considered to be like the father of the Gaelic nation. The Gaelic nation is named after them. So the Gaelic people are Egyptian. They're half Egyptian and they're half Conan the Barbarian. Right? Does anybody know this? No. They should do, though, because this is our rich mythological history. This is the kind of thing that we should be celebrating. All of these stories. Because if you don't celebrate these stories, then you end up celebrating Marvel superheroes instead. Right? Or Star Trek. Or Star Wars. Or even I like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is great. But it's a fake mythology. It's not real. It's an invented mythology. We already have our own mythology. And of course, I'm not saying that any of these things are real. I mean, I don't know if they're real or not. It's not inconceivable that this happened. It's not inconceivable that a daughter of the Pharaoh would marry a Scythian and they would have a son and then they would go and settle in Ireland. I mean, that's not an impossibility. Why can't it happen? They could have just got on a boat and they could have gone there, and who's to stop them, right? So I'm not saying that stuff didn't happen. I am saying that we can't confirm it as historical fact. And a bunch of historians might come in and they might just say, oh, no, because historians are just horrible people. Archaeologists are horrible people. They look at the ancient legends, and because they're so spiteful and nasty, they just think, oh, no, that can't happen. And then they want to tear it all up. And it's a terrible thing. And it's terrible that nationalists and ethno-nationalists fall for this trap, because you are tearing up the myths and the legends of our people. And you think that you look clever when you're doing it. You think you look so smart. Oh, look, I did an archaeological dig and I dug up a skull and I've got a DNA test which proves there blah blah blah, there was this migration and blah blah. It's all a bunch of hodgepodge. It's all a bunch of nonsense. It's all a bunch of scientific mishmash. Scientists change their opinions on things all of the time. And I'm sure they will change their opinions on DNA testing at some point in the future, and they'll change their opinions on what, migration happened in 500 BC. They'll just change their minds. There is no need for us to give up our legends for the sake of a bunch of miserly archaeologists who want to destroy the fabric of our nation. I genuinely mean this. Archaeologists. You think Jews are the enemy of England? Archaeologists are the enemy of European civilization. I'm not even joking. These people have torn up our legends and our myths. And people need legends and myths in order to know who they are. You should be able to look at your ancestors, like I'm English, and you should be able to look at your ancestors and you should think, oh yeah, Hengist and Horsa came from Denmark, and ultimately they come from Scandinavia and Uppsala, where Odin came down and all of this. Our great descendant was Woden himself. This is what you should be thinking in your mind. And now all of a sudden England is a magical place. But the archaeologists have ruined this because they're evil. And if anybody should be deported, it's not Andrew Gold, it's the archaeologists that should be deported from this country. But anyway, the point being, like, this is always the tactic that these people take. They always just like, oh, who are the English? Who are they? Oh, you can't really define them. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a tricky one because in part it's true. We are a combination of three different races. We are the English and the Welsh and the Scottish. These are the three, or the Irish. These are the three races that inhabit the British Isles. So I think it would have been more. I think it would have been more intelligent for Steve Laws to say that instead of claiming that Welsh people are English or that Irish people are English, because obviously they're not. Now that being said, I actually want to solve, because we have been caught in a 1,500 year long race war essentially between the English people and the Celtic people, right? The Welsh and the Irish, and it's kind of been dragging on for too long, to be honest with you. I'm in favour of the Englishification of the British Isles, and what I mean by that, I am in favour of, when we seize power and once we've kicked all the foreigners out, I'm in favour of absorbing Wales, Scotland, and Ireland into England and just making everybody English. That would be my solution to the problem. Now, of course, the Welsh and the Irish and the Scottish would all just laugh and they'd just say, well, we're not English. And I would say, no problem. You can say that if you want, and you can wave your flag if that's what you want, and I don't care. But we all do speak the same language, and I'll make everybody follow the same law, and I would make everybody, we'd all watch the same TV show. We'd have obviously the same currency, and we would be one united country. And more importantly than all of that, we would support the same football team, because the World Cup and the Euro have a deep these two events are the most nationalistic events in the calendar. I mean, I guess maybe we've got cricket, we've got rugby, but I guess I don't watch them. So maybe if you're into them, that's nationalistic for you. But whatever. I think the World Cup and the Euro, they just kind of captivate people more. So I would, if we've got the Scottish cheering for their team playing against us, or when the English football team plays against France and the Scottish are cheering for France, this is a big problem, because it does have a huge psychological effect on the nation, and this is something that has divided us for a long time. And I should point out to you that a lot of members of the Labour Party are Scottish. Tony Blair himself was Scottish. Gordon Brown was Scottish. It was an ongoing joke in the old British comedy The Thick of It, which came out in the noughties, which was kind of making fun of the Blair administration. It was an ongoing joke that everybody in the Labour Party was Scottish, or if you were Scottish, you would get promoted. But whatever the case, these people don't like us. They don't like us, and it's a problem, and we're getting undermined by them. And we have to fix this problem. We're not going to deport the Scottish or the Welsh or the Irish. Unfortunately, I mean, I wouldn't be against it. No, that's a joke. We're not going to deport them. I mean, I'm just saying, I think moving forward, we have to go for the Englishification of the British Isles. We should just open our arms. We need to reconquer Ireland and then open our arms to them and just say, look, guys, you're English too. We accept you as part of the family, as brothers, so to speak. And of course, they'll reject this because Irish people are just like, they're all stunted and twisted on the inside and like, no, they hate the English. They can't help it because the thing about the Irish is that they've only ever had one problem, and that's been us. We had to fight against the Germans. We had to fight against the French. We had to fight against the Spanish, and we conquered the world, and we've had to deal with all these foreign enemies. The Irish have ever had one enemy for the last 1,000 years, and it's been the English. And so from father to son for 1,000 years, they have passed this hatred on, and it's twisted them and it's stunted them. So it's going to take this is why the American Revolution was driven forward in part by the Irish. Even to this day, you've got Irishmen in America that they got a chip on their shoulder and they just don't like us. So It's a big problem. It's not going to get solved overnight. But I think if we just say, look, guys, you're part of the family now, then I think perhaps over the course of like 100 years, they'll calm down and they'll become like the Cornish, because the Cornish are actually British. They're not actually originally they're not actually really English people. They're like the Welsh. They even have their own little, Welsh Brittonic language down there. But if you go to Cornwall now, there's not really much nationalism in Cornwall anymore. There's a few crazy people, they've got that black flag and that and everything, and they want to separate. But basically, if you go to Cornwall and you ask them, they'll say, yeah, we're English, right? So I think it can be done. It will just take a long time. But anyway, whatever. The point being, it's an interesting question, isn't it? And it's also not an unreasonable question to ask. What is it to be English? What is it to be English? Because on the British Isles, at least, there is a combination of different ethnicities. But I think that's the answer to it. There are three major ethnicities on the British Isles, and we, the English, are one of those ethnicities, and we are we come originally from Denmark. We are a Germanic race of people that took over this country 1,500 years ago, right? And then, of course, in response to that, Andrew Gold starts banging on about the Normans and how they integrated. And, I mean, Steve Law's reasonably enough. He just says, yeah, that was 1,000 years ago. And we got invaded. And it was an integration by force. We didn't invite them here. So, I mean, that's kind of fine. I would have doubled down on it more, to be honest with you. I would have just said, actually, like, the history of the English people is the history of rebellion against the Normans. Because they did come down here. They did come here and they treated us like second-class citizens, and they repressed us, and they're still repressing us to this day as second-class citizens. There's still a snobbishness to the Norman aristocrats that rule over us, and they're essentially replacing us with foreigners because they don't care, because all they care about is getting their rent. So I don't know. I would take a more like real pro-English kind of stance with this thing. And I think that's the path forward, to be honest with you, because the question's obviously going to come out. What will come out? Like, what about the Normans? How do you feel about them? And I think we're at a stage now where the vast majority of people are fed up with the king, because he's completely useless. King Charles is just complete, an absolute idiot. He's doing nothing to defend us. And most people are pretty much fed up with the aristocracy. I mean, what have the aristocracy done to defend us in our time of need? They do have power. They do go to Eton. They do go to Oxford. They do get to, some of them at least, get to sit on the House of Lords. And they have these big, wealthy manor houses in the country. I realise they don't have the wealth that they used to have in the 19th century, but they're still wealthy. They still have access to power. They've still got their Land Rovers, right? And their fox hunting and so on and so forth. What are they doing with all their wealth? Are they defending the English people in our time of need? Do they care about young white peasant girls being raped by foreigners? Well, it doesn't seem like they do. They're certainly not talking about it. All of the pushback against immigration is coming from the working classes. It's coming from people like Steve Laws. It's coming from the kind of people that support Tommy Robinson. So, I mean, to be fair, some of the middle classes as well. The way I see it, there's two controlled opposition movements or leaders or false messiahs in the country. It's Nigel Farage for the middle classes, and it's Tommy Robinson for the working classes. And they're both leading people astray. I think for a proper English ethno-nationalism, when the Norman question comes up, it's like, well, they've been here for a long time. I don't think we should start deporting the Normans. But nonetheless, like, they're not good people. Andrew Gold is like trying to sell this idea that, they benefited the country so much. No, they didn't. They enslaved us. And we've been rebelling against them ever since. In fact, one of England's greatest heroes is Robin Hood, who was explicitly anti-Norman. Taken from the rich and giving to the poor. And by the way, like the Normans were brought over by the Jews, and the Jewish tax collectors just drove us into poverty. The entire history of the English people for the last 1,000 years has been a rebellion against Jewish tax, slavery that was imposed upon us by the Jews. And this is the point Andrew Gold comes back to again and again in the debate. He keeps saying, oh, well, the Jews have been in for 1,000 years. Well, no, they weren't. They were kicked out. And then they were brought back in by Cromwell. So they haven't actually been here continuously for that time. They were brought here. They were hated. They were kicked out. And then they were brought back in. And it's only been a very, very small minority of them. But anyway, whatever. I suppose Steve doesn't want to get into the whole Jewish conspiracy thing, because then you could go off into a massive, massive tangent. As I said before, the beauty of the Steve Laws presentation is its simplicity. It's straight to the point. It's let's just get the foreigners out, right? But yeah, this is the basic program of the debate. First of all, it starts off with undermining who the English are. Do they actually exist? And it's a difficult one to avoid because we do have a mosaic, so to speak, in the past. But I think if you're an honest person, you know who an English person is. And if you're dishonest, then you're going to play this game of, oh, it's a mishmash and we're confused and what have you. Steve, during the course of the interview, I think deals with it quite well. He basically says, look, if your grandparents or your great-grandparents are English, then you're English, right? That's about as far back as anybody can go anyway, like as far as memory goes in your personal family memory, unless you're into, looking up your ancestors and getting their birth certificates or whatever. Most people can only really remember back. I mean, I have I've heard a few stories about my great-grandparents, but I don't really know them at all. I don't really have any knowledge of them, but I know they were English, right? So I think that's the correct position to take. If your great-grandparents were English, you're English. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, people know who the English are. We are the Anglo-Saxons. We are a Germanic race of people who originally came from Denmark. That's who we are. Anybody who's, yes, there is a Welsh division and a Scottish division, and yes, the Normans came over and they've integrated into us, but that was a long time ago, and we've been very steady on this island for the last 1,000 years. And to say that we're not native or that this island doesn't belong to us is just completely dishonest. And most honest people can see that. So I think that was dealt with quite well. But this is the tactic that they will do. They will say, oh, you can't properly define what an English person is. And then if that doesn't work, Andrew Gold will then go on to the next step, which is to say, oh, but you can't kick everybody out. It's impossible. And to which Steve Laws, of course, just says, well, yeah, we can. Actually, we can just kick everyone out. It's not impossible at all. And he, of course, he's right. And interestingly, Sargon says the same thing. Oh, we can't just kick everybody. We actually can. We actually can. You can take power. You can get the army out. You can, give gun. You can raise a 1 million-man army, and you can kick all these people out. It would be violence, and it would be kind of awful, but it's not impossible. To say that it's impossible is just retarded. These kinds of things happen all the time, but this is the tactic. It's just like this. It's just like Andrew Gold playing by the playbook. Bog standard interviews, seen all this 100 times before. It's always the same questions. It's always the same. Oh, you can't. Oh, English people don't really exist. Oh no, you can't kick everybody out. And then it was such a great interview, actually. Steve Laws just again and again keeps bringing it back to, like, why do you keep defending the Jews? Why do we keep talking about the Jews? Why do you keep doubling down again and again and again to defend your ethnicity and your people? And Andrew Golden, the one, just keeps denying it, denying that he is defending. I mean, one point about this is just like, why should we respect Andrew Gold if he's not even loyal to his own people? I would have much more respect, and I would be much more trusting of a Jew who would say that, yeah, of course I'm loyal to the Jewish people because I'm Jewish. That would be like, okay, now we can talk eye to eye, man to man. But if Andrew Gold's going to sit there and he's going to like betray his own people for the sake of the English, it just, to me, that just makes Andrew Gold look untrustworthy. You know what I mean? So, all in all, a great interview. Brilliant to see Steve Laws smashing Tommy Robinson, calling him a traitor. This is just, class. Beautiful. Great. I can't believe I've been stuck on the internet for 10 flipping years talking about Tommy flipping Robinson. Again and again and again. I've still got to talk about this guy. Amazing to see Sargon come out as well, defending Tommy Robinson. It's almost like Sargon's just getting absorbed into the Borg. I mean, he has adopted an ethno-nationalist position, and he is trying to make friends with everybody, and he is trying to like get on with everybody. I mean, I appreciate what he's doing, okay, but Tommy Robbins is a scumbag. Like, this is not a good person. He does live in Spain. He does have a lot of money. It's very interesting to watch Andrew Gold doubling down. Oh, you don't know that Tommy Robinson's rich. Tommy Robinson walks around the place in designer clothing all the time. This is a guy that's got a lot of money. He lives in a nice big house in Spain. Okay, he's going on trips to Israel all the time. Who's paying for that? It's absurd to suggest that he doesn't have money and he hasn't made money out of all of his endeavors. But this is where the debate is now, apparently, which is good. I think most of the people that support Tommy Robinson would actually much rather support Steve Laws, given the choice, and if they knew who he was. And if that shift can happen, that would be beautiful. If Steve Laws could become the new Tommy Robinson, that would just be magnificent. That would be wonderful. That would be, that would be fantastic. Because, like I say, Steve Laws is a working class bloke that can talk to working class men and they'll follow him. He's not, he's not posh, and he doesn't mingle his words up with a bunch of academic references or talk about isms and ists and history and weird economic ideas or whatever. It's very straightforward what he is saying, and this is the kind of thing that working class people can get behind. So I really genuinely hope he does become a great leader. It's beautiful to see him taking a swipe at Tommy, and a lot of Tommy tards are going to watch this interview and they're going to start turning towards Steve Laws, essentially, more and more and more and more. And I don't see what Tommy Robinson or Sargon or Andrew Gold is going to be able to do to stop them, because, as I say, we are being invaded, and people are quite rightly upset and extremely worried about what is going on in the country, and Tommy Robinson's not offering a solution. So I thought that was great. I thought it was great that Steve Laws also disassociated himself from Fuentes, because Fuentes is a weirdo, and the whole Groyper movement is weird, and it's an American thing, it's not an English thing, and it's kind of good. It's good to stay away from that whole shit show, to be honest with you. Like, it's all mixed up with Candace Owens now, and Charlie Kirk. Was Charlie Kirk assassinated by Israel, and what's going on? And then you've got these Catholic ideas, and you got Fuentes flip-flopping all over the place ideologically. It's a mess, and it's an American mess, and it's good to stay away from that mess, because it's not our mess. I am actually, the way I feel about Fuentes, I don't really like Fuentes, to be honest with you. I think he's, as I say, he's a flip-flop. He's all over the place. He says one thing one day and something else the other day. I played a clip on my show, The Anglo Gang, and I think it's either him on the Tucker Carlson show, or it was him like a few days after he did the Tucker Carlson interview. And Fuentes comes out and says, well, if you're born in America, then you're an American. Right? If you are born in America, you are an American, and this is your country. So he's not really an ethno-nationalist. He kind of claims to be, but he isn't. I mean, if that statement's true, then he's in support of anchor babies. Now, of course, Fuentes comes back and he says, "No, you've misquoted me," and this is what he does all the time. This is what he does all the time. It's a controlled opposition psyop. It's like Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson, oh my God, this guy, like, people think that he represents their opinions, but he doesn't. Tommy Robinson multiple times will just declare that he wants more immigration and that immigration is good for England, but he just wants them to be integrated. You know? People think he's like anti-immigration, far-right Tommy Robinson, but he's not at all. The same thing with Fuentes. They think he's something like some kind of savior, but he's not at all. Now, if you're a white man and you're in America and you're joining the Republican Party, then everybody's a groyper, essentially. So he has captivated the younger generation. And the interview that he did with Piers Morgan was hilarious. It was objectively hilarious. So he is entertaining to watch. Like that whole statement when we're talking about the Holocaust, and he's like, "Is it too soon? Is it too soon to joke about the Holocaust?" I mean, that was brilliant, right? So he's not going to go away. Fuentes is here to stay, but I think it's good that Steve Laws is staying away from that. So yeah, I thought the part where what else did he do? He said, "What's happening to the British people is a Holocaust." I mean, that was epic. That's great. That's a great point. I don't think Andrew Gold had an answer to that. He got him on the collective punishment question. Like, if you compare it to a civil war, if you compare it to the war in Gaza or any war, right? You're fighting against a foreign nation. Civilians are going to end up getting shot, and maybe it's not their fault, but a war is a war. So if we are fighting a war essentially against foreigners that are invading us, then it makes it quite clear, right? The whole thing becomes a lot more clarified in your mind. And Andrew Gold didn't really seem to have an answer to that at all. He couldn't seem to defend against that. And then Andrew Gold starts talking about this school run by this black woman, the Mekela School. We've talked about this several times before on my show. Andrew Gold thinks this is the solution for England. No, this is not the solution for England. This is a very, very rigid authoritarian school where people have to be silent in the corridors, and it's not a nice place to go to. But she has to impose this authority, onto her students. Why? Because it's multicultural, and it's the only way to stop them from fighting against each other. So Andrew Gold thinks this is a great solution to the problem of British multiculturalism, but it's not. The best solution is to kick all the foreigners out, because we don't really want these authoritarian schools. What we want is a school or a society in which we don't need an authoritarian government to stop us from killing each other, right? The only reason that school needs the authoritarian rules that it has is because it's multicultural. If everybody in the school was just all English, then we'd all just, the students of the school would all just get along with each other, and they'd go to school happily, and they'd do whatever kids do. They'd get along. It'd be okay. It would be fine. This idea that a lot of discipline and a lot of rules is the solution it is the solution to a multicultural environment, but it's not what you want. There are two ways to run a country or to run a society or a group. You can run a group through lots of discipline and heavy rules to make people, stop fighting with each other, or you can just run a group with very few rules, but the virtue of the people within the group makes everybody get along with each other. You see, I'm in favor of the latter. I think good people don't need lots of rules to control them. And I think the English people are good people. And that's why in the past, when we had an ethno-state in this country, we didn't need many rules. We didn't need a lot of policing because people would police themselves, because we had a polite society in which everybody was friendly and they got along and they frowned upon antisocial behavior. That's the way you want to run your country, not in the Soviet style. But Andrew Gold sees the Soviet style as being the solution, right? It's awful. I don't want that for the future. Yeah, and that's basically that. I mean, it's interesting in all these conversations, like the Nick Fuentes interview, the Steve Laws interview with Liam Tufts, the Sargon interview with Peter McCormack. In all of these conversations about ethno-nationalism, big interviews. We've had quite a few of these in the last few months. Things are really boiling up. But in all of these conversations, nobody's really talking about the biology. Nobody's gone that far. I don't understand why. But nobody's talking about IQ. Nobody's addressing the question of, is race real or not? It's all like about the cultural aspect. I mean, maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. I don't know. But I do think it needs to be driven home that there are racial differences, and that, you know, the average IQ in sub-Saharan Africa is like 60. I mean, these people are just biologically retarded, essentially. Maybe they don't want to go there because it's against the law. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why the conversation is not going there, but I think somebody should address it. People should understand, like, basic talking points, like white DNA is essentially recessive, and so if, like, a black person has sex with a white person and they have a baby, the child's going to come out and it's going to be brown. And, you know, so I don't know why that's not being discussed. I think that should be part of the conversation more. Maybe it will come out in the future. Maybe people are just avoiding it for some reason. I'm not sure why. Andrew Gold does say that he thinks the white race is just going to get genocided anyway. So he thinks it's inevitable. So he's already given up. So it's like, what are you doing in my country, mate? Why are you here? You don't want to defend us. You don't really like us. You think it's all over. You think we're going to go extinct. You know, you just want to, like, flip-flop around and say, oh, we should stop immigration, but actually it's all over. The English people aren't real and they don't exist, and we can't kick all the foreigners out anyway, so we should just give up. How am I supposed to be inspired by Andrew Gold? Like, given the choice between Andrew Gold, right, and Steve Laws, who am I going to choose? I'm going to choose Steve Laws. Like, duh. And I think a lot of people watching that interview will choose Steve Laws over Andrew Gold, because Andrew Gold just doesn't have any solutions, does he? Right? So it's a great interview. A lot of progress. Steve Laws quite rightfully dodged the Holocaust question. He says he doesn't talk about it. He says he doesn't know what happened. He says he doesn't want to talk about it. This is good. I do suspect maybe he has some sympathies for Hitler, but he's dodging it. So, I mean, that's probably the right path to take. I have seen Steve Laws posting the 14 words on Twitter. I think that's kind of dumb. I don't think he should do it. The 14 words is an idea that's been promoted by David Lane, who is an American neo-Nazi. And so by posting the 14 words, you are associating yourself with neo-Nazism, and that is a trap, and we shouldn't go there, basically. The people of England are never going to rally behind Adolf Hitler. It's a huge mistake. And I think at some point we're going to have to dig into that, and we're going to have to really, really rip that out. We need an English ethno-nationalism which is built on a pride of being English, and a pride of the glory of the English race, and a pride of the British Empire. And you may hate it, but that's what Churchill was defending. At the end of the day, he has become an icon of the British Empire. That is why we went to war with Germany, to defend the British Empire, because we were the global superpower of the time, and it was not in our political interests to have a German, pan-German empire in the heart of Europe. we did ask Hitler to stop invading countries. After he took Austria, Neville Chamberlain went there. He said, please stop invading countries. He took Austria. He took the Sudetenland. Chamberlain said, can you please stop? We don't want to have a war. Please stop. And what did Hitler do? Next he takes Prague. Then he takes Poland. So Hitler was aggressive. There's no way of ignoring the fact that he was aggressive. If Hitler had simply taken Austria and stopped there, that would have been the end of the war. Or if Hitler had just simply not taken Austria at all, Hitler could have been the dictator of Germany for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Nobody would have stopped him. Nobody would have started a war with him. Nobody wanted a war. Everybody was exhausted after the First World War. And so to promote Hitler as some kind of hero of the white race is kind of retarded. The real truth of the Second World War is that, there's a little bit of aggression on both sides, and then, the thing kicked off, and that is what it is, and that's how it starts, and that's how all wars start. But to pretend that Hitler was innocent is just false. And so if there's a fight, like any fight, you should take your own side in the fight. It's very foolish to take the side of a foreign nation in a fight, because people have grandparents that fought in that war. My grandparents fought in that war. And if you support Adolf Hitler, it means you want my grandparents to be dead. You want my grandfather to be dead, which means you want me to be dead. Do you see what I'm saying? Psychologically, you always have to support your own nation, regardless of whether you think Churchill was a good guy or not. Because the moment you start turning against Churchill, now you've opened up yourself up to attack. Now you've got a bunch of American neo-Nazis sitting on the internet saying, oh, you, the English, you're the Jews of Europe, you ruined everything, blah, 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 blah. Sargon's done this recently by turning against liberalism. He's turned against liberalism, and now he's having to deal with people saying, yeah, you, the English, you spread liberalism across the world, and you've destroyed everything with your philosophical ideas. Right? See what I'm saying? So once you turn against Churchill, now you got to deal with people blaming you for beating Hitler, blaming the British Empire, hating on the English. I'm sick of it. I'm absolutely sick to death of people telling me I've got to be ashamed for Dresden and I've got to apologise for Dresden. Now, fortunately, this new younger generation of white nationalists, of ethno-nationalists that have appeared, they do not seem to be falling for this trap. The Zoomer historian is, and he's a friend of Steve Laws, or he appears to be. And I think that's a huge mistake, and I think that's a great weakness that Steve Laws has. And I think that's going to have to be something that has to be overcome at some point. But whatever. It's a great victory. It's a great victory. It's a great interview. It's a great victory. And that's all I've got to say. So, thank you very much for listening. And again, Steve, come on the show and have a chat with us. Sargon, Andrew Gold can come on if he wants. That'd be great. Can you imagine that? Andrew Gold coming on the Anglo Gang. That'd be a laugh, wouldn't it? Anyway, all right. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you. Goodbye.